My buddy Marlene.
Okay,
You're on.
so, this is December 2nd, and we're calling the meeting of the Newbury Planning Board to order. My name is John Weiss, and to my left,
George Morse.
Jim Robinson.
Paul Haverty.
Elizabeth Mitchell.
John O'Connell.
Martha Taylor.
so, our agenda this evening is we have a number of business issues to discuss, but also we have a continuation of the public hearing on Borrego Solar, and that is a time certain to start at 7:15. So we're going to proceed with our other items that we have on the agenda. The first is the meeting minutes of October 21st, and did everyone have a chance to look at those, and does anyone have any comments on them?
No comment here.
No comment?
I have a question.
I had a couple of questions and stuff
Okay.
that weren't so much functional, but I just, because it was so while ago, follow up.
I was curious, on the second paragraph on page 2, Martha, since S. Long replied that the blue color will actually stand out more than an actual panel would. The color of the tarps is close to the color of the panels, and the tarps have a sheen. Is that true? Are the panel fronts blue?
No,
I think the ones that we're gonna use are black. Some of them are blue,
Okay.
but I actually couldn't get black tarps. So that's why we're using blue, and I thought they were
Okay.
more visible.
So the tarps are not really close to the color of the panels. That's, can you see that, Martha?
That's this first sentence in this, in the second paragraph.
Right, I see that, although I think you said that at the time, that they were close to the color of the panels that you thought you were
I thought
using.
they were.
That's right.
Okay.
You see,
All right.
the point is, he said that, we got out there, we saw them, we said, no, that's not what I thought.
Not close. Right.
And Zach has a better idea of what. the
Okay.
Okay, good, thank you.
will look like.
So
Thanks.
I did have a couple of questions just on the motion. This is, happens to be not the Borrego issue, but on the first issue of 101 Newbury, Angelo Giardello.
Yep.
A motion is made by John and seconded by George to leave the decision regarding the base material for Sled Road in the hands of the DPW director, and that he have the final decision. Do we know if that has
John, I
solidified?
can't hear what you're saying. I'm sorry, I didn't hear a thing. I don't know what you're saying.
We're talking about
Okay.
this motion here, and
Okay.
John's asking if we ever got anything back from,
From
James.
James.
From Angelo?
No, from James. From
Did
James.
James confirm?
Well, verbally, yeah, he was happy.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, he's cool with it.
All right. And the second, on Borrego, relative to the, this is the third paragraph down, Zach's presentation talked about the NRG Community Solar Program. And is that something that is real or not real, or what is that?
It's real.
It is real. And so if this went through, that would be available?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not positive, but it's one of the options, and that's probably the option we'll go to,
Okay,
most likely.
all right. And then, John, one of the paragraphs here talks about the decommissioning. It's on page 4, the third paragraph. And it said that you noted that you had expressed discomfort at the last session about the cost estimate, but that you would speak with Steve
Yeah, well,
about that. And I'm just, did you do
If
that?
that 25% is applied, and we have the right to apply it, I'm
Right.
cool.
Okay,
Okay?
We do.
okay. So those are all my questions. So with that, and I don't think there's any changes that are necessary with that. Those are just information pieces for me. So do I have a motion on the minutes?
Move to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you very much. So Mark is not here, but I think that we could have, since all of us were on the site walk at the DePiro project, I want to just make sure that we're all on the same page, because I think we left the meeting, and, I mean, the site walk and the meeting, that we, I think, concurred that a 5-foot distance from the rear property lines was acceptable to us. So,
Well, acceptable in principle. are we allowed to make that call? I'm sorry,
I think
I
we-
may have
yes,
missed
we
a
are.
chapter.
Yeah, we are allowed to.
We
make
are
that.
allowed, that is not, does not have to go to the ZBA?
No,
Okay.
no.
I'm comfortable with it, yeah.
Okay.
As long as we were authorized to make that,
I mean, I think we went back and forth. He wanted 2 feet.
yeah.
I think right now it says 10.
4 feet's a comfortable number, I
Four
think.
or 5. I think it's
Yeah.
fine.
5 feet.
I think we went to
5
5.
feet, rather.
Are you okay with that,
Yes, I am.
everybody?
Sure, reasonable.
Okay, so I mean, we can communicate that to
Okay, do you want me
Mark.
to write him a letter and say
Yeah,
that
just, I
that's?
mean, he doesn't have to appear if he doesn't want to.
Okay.
Basically, we can concur that that makes sense. Okay.
Just to get clarification, I have no idea what that 5 feet is. Can you just clarify what that is?
There is sure. There is a project under construction by Mark DePiero
So
on,
it has nothing to do with the solar project?
Oh,
has
no.
nothing to do.
I'm sorry, my apologies.
yeah, I was referencing the first item on the agenda, which was Mark DePiero LLC.
I heard
He wasn't.
Mark, and I thought of 1 Courtney Drive.
So
That's why.
he wasn't here, and so, but we just did a site visit on that. It was raining more than the site visit we had with you. So, 255 High Road, what exactly is before us on this?
And just in case you wanted, here's Ginny's summary of the 61A process again. So the selectmen are going to be holding a public hearing next Tuesday, the 8th, regarding the property. The 120-day time clock is ticking. It's up March 2nd. And so the selectmen will be looking for input from abutters, from any conservation organizations that might be interested in the property, and from boards and committees to get input on whether the board thinks that there's any value to the town in acquiring the property, or if there's conservation value, what the development potential of it might be, that kind of thing.
So maybe for the audience and for TV, maybe just expand a bit to explain, since give them better understanding of what's before us. That'd be
Sure.
helpful.
There's a parcel down on High Road, it's 255 High Road, it's part of what was originally Florence Bushy's racetrack, and it was subdivided by Bill Hurley a number of years ago. And Mr. Hurley passed away, his son has acquired the parcel, and it's in Chapter 61A, and any property that's in Chapter, whether it's 61A, which is agricultural, or 61B, which is recreational, the town has the right of first refusal if those are going to come out of chapter. The notice of intent to sell was submitted in the beginning of November. The clock started ticking on the 120 on November 3rd. The person who is interested in purchasing it intends to do a small subdivision divided into 3 parcels. It can't be done through the approval not required process. It would actually have to go through the subdivision process. The front part of the parcel is basically hayed now. The back part of it is wooded, and it abuts property owned by the trustees of reservations and the Parker River National Wildlife. So the selectmen are required to hold a public hearing that will open next Tuesday, may or may not be continued depending on the kind of feedback they get. It's been noticed in the newspaper, notices have been sent to abutters and also to the trustees, Essex County Greenbelt. And so the selectmen will be looking for input from any interested parties, both town boards and committees and residents or conservation groups, on what the value of that parcel might be, either to the town or to other organizations, or for open space potential.
Have we heard anything from Greenbelt or Parker River on this?
Not so far that I'm aware
So
of,
have not expressed an interest in it yet.
not so far.
Does this parcel have frontage as it exists now?
It's got, the entire parcel has about,
After Adam splits off his lot is what I meant.
well, there'll be frontage for the parcel with the barn,
'cause you've
Right.
got-
That's
On High
existing,
Road, that's
yeah.
existing, but he'll have to create a road for the other any other parcels that he
Okay.
wants to get out of it.
All right, so there will be, the barn is here, he's gonna build here somewhere presumably, so he'll have to create a road
Yes.
in. And will that road, is that developable beyond his house is my question?
Well, his intention is to create two parcels, one which would be presumably behind the barn,
Yeah. That's where he's gonna
which would be,
build.
no, well, he's actually going to build for himself
Further back,
back, further
okay.
back in the woods.
How's he get there?
And the middle parcel, I think he's planning to essentially develop and sell.
Now, when you say middle parcel, is that like in the middle of the
So it'd be-
Aid area?
I think. I haven't seen a plan, so I'm not sure,
don't
but the
have a
way
plan.
he's, right, we don't have a plan.
So the tree I'm barking up, if the town buys it, are they preventing development? Or are they, is it something that's not developable anyway?
It is
It
developable.
will
Develop-
be developable.
You can
Yeah.
put 3 lots on this.
There will be 3, beyond Adams.
No,
There's Adams
right?
got a lot, there's an existing lot, the barn.
right.
Is that the?
I
is
think the
there
barn counts as 1.
Barn counts as one.
One, Adams' house counts as 2,
And there would be a third,
a third lot.
A
So
third
it'd be a
lot.
one, there's one remaining lot that's developable.
right.
Okay.
And there might be more. I haven't seen a plan, but that's what his
I
intention
think that would
is.
be, really important to we see the
Yeah, I'd like
plan
to see the
before we
plan.
have an opinion.
Do we,
You know, all,
does the selectmen need our opinion by when, by Tuesday?
they can certainly continue the
Because we
hearing.
haven't, has anyone seen a plan?
No, I mean, he's described it to me verbally, but I haven't
think-
seen any
My
plan.
instinct is we need a plan.
Yeah, I agree.
Otherwise, you can't, yes, it'd be, 3 new houses is good, I think. But I don't know, I'd like to see where he's gonna put them.
So,
I agree.
Does the remaining land that the town would buy, does it abut conservation land?
Ye-
Or is it
it abuts trustees and.
the trustees'
and
property?
the wildlife, the refuge property.
The parcel the town might buy abuts both of those.
Well, the entire parcel does.
Right,
So-
but I'm asking about, I don't care about Adam and the barn, the parcel that we're voting on.
Well, we're voting on, it's the entire parcel as it stands right now, is what the board is looking for input on.
Oh,
So at this time, he's made, there's a purchase and sale for $500,000 for
Yeah.
the entire thing.
Sure.
So the board has the right of first refusal on that entire parcel.
and leave Adam in the cold.
Right,
So
so
he
that,
doesn't get to.
Right.
so,
Right.
right.
I
Right,
get it,
right,
I'm
right,
sorry.
right.
No
Right,
sense to
right.
be an Irish if you're not a little
Yeah, I
slow.
know.
Okay. Oh dear, okay.
So,
thought
so
we were
now, so
talking
that's the
only
issue. I
one
mean, so,
lot.
so if one of those NGOs steps forward and says they really want this property, and they're acting in behest of the town, which the
Yeah.
town can give that right to them,
Sure,
then they do it.
yeah.
Or if the town felt that there was some municipal value for
Right.
the parcel, the town could acquire the whole thing.
So we're in the town is in a position to say, Adam, no, you can't build your house there.
I think that's true.
Yes.
But they have to have a purpose.
Pardon me?
They have to have a purpose, either open space through an NGO or a town purpose.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what else to say, except I'd like to see a site plan.
Yeah, I don't think we can, it's a difficult decision at best, but without a damn plan,
Yeah.
that's kind of hopeless.
Do you have an opinion? You can talk about this. Just so
I
that,
actually, I need to
she has
recuse
to recuse
myself
herself from a
from,
vote, but I don't think you have to recuse yourself from a comment.
You can't
Isn't that
vote,
my
but you
understanding?
can-
Am I
you can-
right about how you recuse
well,
yourself?
I think
I think you're better off.
So, for the record, I am in a butter of 255 High Road, so my intention is to recuse myself from any discussion on behalf of the
Okay.
board. I can certainly, I think, present, and I did present at our last meeting, a point of view as a citizen of the town and as an abutter, but not in my official capacity as a board member.
Right, okay, okay. Okay, so I guess, are you gonna be there Tuesday? I can't,
Yeah,
I've got a
yeah, no, I'll be there.
class.
I'll be there. So I can relay that. I guess the only other thing would be if the board sees any potential use as a municipal parcel at this point, so.
All right. All right, it's 7:15. I'm going to reopen the special permit hearing application of the 2.795 megawatt ground-mounted solar energy generating facility at 136 Main Street in Byfield, applicant Borrego Solar Systems, Inc. So, Steve, do you have a bit of a presentation you want to make first?
I don't really have a presentation, but I have some plans. I have some plans just to go over what we looked at out there, and then Martha had a couple questions that were brought up. as we took the
Did I give
sidewalk.
you the?
I have it.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I have, new information that we have received, which has been my
Right.
habit to go over that before we start any public discussions on this, to let everybody know what's come in and what you are all entitled to see, and, because a lot of this just came in today. So why don't we go and give your summary, and that's
Yep.
fine.
Yep,
Thank you.
that's all I'm gonna do. No, there's nothing new, so. So, on Saturday, we went out and did the site walk, at the residences over here. These racks were set up in the field, and we put blue tarps on those. And we went to each property, and looked. We actually went down here, went through the yards, and then we went up to this property. I think we actually came over here, went in their house, looked from the first, second, third floor, went over to Alicia's house, did the same thing. Then we came back over to Greg's property, went into the backyard and looked. So that's where these were located. This is the highest point, this is the closest to the residence.
Could
And
you-
they had blue tarps.
Could you show, because there was some concern, and when we were out there the next day,
Yep.
where you took the 3 acres from, when you decreased the size
Yep.
of the array?
It shows a little bit lightly, but right here, I'll just show you with my fingers, but right here, you
Okay.
can see lightly there's racks here. So it's
Okay.
really this area here. We're going right up to the 25-foot buffer, pretty much with the fence. So the fence moved approximately 75 feet from where it was.
Another question that was asked on the subsequent day was, how far away from the arrays will Borrego be cutting back trees? On all sides? In other
Yep.
words, it's,
You can see it on this plan. I think I have another plan that might show it better. So the blue is the whole array, and the extent of the blue is the fence. So the trees are gonna be right at the edge of the fence.
right at the edge of the fence,
Right at the edge of the fence. And the only place we're not there is where we're adding the
landscaping.
The landscape, exactly. So in this case, typically in a solar array, you would clear for the shade buffer, but we're not here. And that's all part of our production model, that we have the trees in the model, and that is taken into account.
Okay.
What do you mean by the shade buffer?
Let him
Usually
finish.
you'll
Let him finish.
clear out here,
You'll-
because when the shade of the trees comes, at
Well, the
let's say
branches
3
reach out
o'clock,
over?
well,
Oh, no,
just the
it's
shade from the
In
sun
the
being
west.
lower.
Okay,
Yeah, so
all
it'll
right,
shade this portion.
yeah.
Yeah, we
So then you
noticed
won't
that
get
when we were out
production
there.
from those.
Especially in November, December.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The model's based on December 21st.
Oh, it is?
Yep, so it's when the sun's the lowest. Yep, so
Okay.
that's when you're gonna get the worst shading.
And then, so that carries through, also, there was questions about what you were doing, in the even though it doesn't affect the abutters
To
directly.
the south?
Yeah, to the south and
To
to
the
the
south,
south.
we're clearing here, and that was basically for shading. That's the worst shading you're gonna have. To the south, that's gonna be where you want it to be the clearest.
Right,
And we're outside the 100-foot buffer, and that's what we're gonna use for lay down. temporary snow storage in the winter.
And you were always going to do that?
We were always gonna do that.
Okay.
Yep.
What, because, let me just know, because there were a number of people who had questions on this. Jean had a question about this, and do you all have any questions about this?
Are you gonna be clearing on the other side, the opposite side of the?
I just, over here,
Yeah.
yes, this is the tree line over here.
But just to there, just to where the
Yeah,
fence would
right
be?
here. It's out, it's a little bit outside the fence here, but the fence is a straight line, so we went up to the 25-foot
Right.
buffer.
So according to our requirements, they are need to put in a black vinyl, 8-foot high
Correct.
chain link fence around the entire property.
Is that gonna have slats?
Nope.
Or
No, but it's got,
just chain links, just, you're
Chain
looking at a
links.
diamond shaped hole?
but it's this far off the ground to let,
Yeah, just the critters can
Let
get
the
through.
critters
6
it.
inches, yeah, that's right.
So the only, my concern is shading and having, not have the array.
Alicia, if you want some things that are gonna be recorded, go on up there, to be recorded, because
I'll wait till the end.
okay. Do you wanna wait, or do you wanna,
Okay, I'll wait.
okay.
And there was another question that was brought up as to this rack right there, the elevation of that, and if there were any other areas that were higher. And I have a plan that shows that. So, the height, the existing ground is approximately 78 here. And then there's some high points where we're grading it down to 78.5. So really, it's about the highest spot. There's an area here that's 76, but these are the high points, so it's not gonna be much higher than the one that we showed.
That's important. In fact, I was looking at that today, and on your original site plan, I didn't have the updated one, and I did see the areas where I wasn't sure if you were gonna shave them down a bit, because it was only
just
about,
shading down a bit,
it was just a 2-foot thing, and I thought that you could do that to
Yep.
ensure that the highest point is that 78.
Yeah, and that's, this, we have a spot grade, that's not a spot grade, it's gonna be about the same,
Yeah,
yeah. And then over at Greg's house, I put a grade there at 76 approximately,
yeah.
to give you an idea. Yep.
Yep.
So those are above sea level, 78 feet?
Yes.
Because our property back adjacent to Courtney is at 69 feet, so this is higher than that.
Yep.
And so today, we're going to want to hear about stormwater mitigation, how that all turns into stormwater and where it goes.
I've already discussed that at previous meetings.
That's kind of a done deal at this
Yeah.
point, I believe.
Right.
Relative, it's in the hands of DEP right
Right.
now.
Right.
Excuse me, could you identify yourself, please?
Bill True,
And your address?
150 Main Street.
Thank you.
So those are the questions that I had received, and that's overall what we did.
Okay.
And that's my summary, and if you have any other questions, I'm here to answer. And I did review this today, and if you have questions for me regarding this.
Not yet.
Okay.
On this, as you know, I took some photos, and my printer wasn't working, but I want to show them to you. And I want to have them in the record, because it's obviously showing at your property, it doesn't show them at the others, but I just want to show them to you if you can bring them up. So this is obviously taken looking at Alicia's, yeah.
Unfinished shed.
right, and
John, this was the next day? This was Sunday?
this is the next, all of these are the next day.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
no, and so, and just to show that you really can't see, there's a lot of coniferous cover in through here, and you can't see through it. Go to the next one. And this is actually looking straight out. I still couldn't figure out, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I tried to even reduce the glare when I printed it, or, brought it back. And I understand what Alicia's concern is, after you've gotten through all the wood, there's gonna be an opening. And,
Yep.
and I think I understand that.
Yep.
Go ahead. This is, this is from Jean and Dan's porch deck, looking out, and, there's nothing that pops on this. And there's one more from theirs. And that's another one. So go to the next ones where we picked them up. So now here you can see in the middle of the photo that's a blue tarp. That's looking out Greg's. Go to the
That's
next.
the edge of the pole, yeah.
You get right at the edge of the, this one, I think, I don't see anything in this one. Yeah, not only because there's so much coniferous stuff.
Yeah.
The next one, I think there's 3 of them. I think, I know there's 2 more that have blue, so why don't you go to the next 2? Yeah, up there. And these are all taken with normal lens, no telephoto, and no wide angle. Okay, so, and then the next one, that all, down below now. See, right about there,
Yep.
right about there. So, it's clear that, you know, you can see 2 spots. And so I guess my thought was, well, if you could see 2 spots, you could see a line. Do you know what I'm getting at? So you could see more than that when it was eventually built. All just reinforcing our original opinion that the site needs substantial landscaping.
Yep, and
Okay.
I think the location where we've shown it,
Whereas there was a time when we looked a month ago, I think everybody said, well, you know, maybe you don't have to do any land, and I said, absolutely not.
Yep.
You need to do substantial landscaping to make this work. So I'll print those out and I'll feed them into the,
Yep.
record. Great.
Maybe it's best that I do speak now, just because you've got the pictures up there.
Sure.
And I want to talk about that size of the lot on Sunday. Craig Marshall, 6 Courtney Drive. So I wasn't there for the Saturday walk, my apologies, but I was there on Sunday. And I think some people that were there on Saturday weren't there on Sunday. But, you know, we had a discussion with the residents. It was clear that you could see both mock-ups from my backyard. I thought somebody had said they saw it from your kitchen window. And by the way, I can tell you, just from that picture right there, there is more foliage that will go down. That one plant right there totally dies off. And there's some other things that actually continue to die off as the winter progresses. So I just want to make that clear. But I've got a list of items. I'm going to leave this with you and hopefully for the record. So we talked about the visibility. You know, we continue to be disappointed that there was no 3D modeling. There were only 2 mock-ups. We were initially told there were going to be 7. That went to 5. That went to 2. There were going to be real arrays.
Let me just
Yes.
stop you. When we were talking about 7 and 5, we thought the size was going to be this size, an individual array.
Individual panel?
Right,
Okay.
an individual
Yeah.
panel. And then Steve came back and said, wait, I can do a 30 by 15. And we said, okay, we can live with that. I think that we can live with 2. Let's do the highest location and the closest. That was that rationale.
Okay. I didn't understand that was the mix-up, but
That took it.
all along, I thought they were the full 6x5 arrays or 7x5 arrays. Anyway, so that was 2 out of, I don't know, 300 that would be out there. You mentioned that you would see this thing in a straight line, but I also, and the neighbors feel the same way, you're not only going to see that straight line, which I think there's probably 12 arrays, you're going to see 2, 3, 4 deep from there. So the screening that would be required would be quite significant. Okay, we also don't feel that the actual arrays were representative, or the mock-ups of the actual arrays. Now, I know you're saying that, you know, the panels are going to be black versus the tarps that were blue, but what about the metal stands? Are they going to be shiny metal stands versus wood that's sitting in the middle of woods right now? There's also, we've been told, a white underbelly. We're not sure how much of that will be seen.
Don't paint.
Just flat paint.
So I've heard that there's not going to be much removal of trees next to the arrays. There's got to be some trees that are going to be removed next to those arrays that are closest to our homes, because they'll be totally shaded. So
But the sun.
I understand how the
It's not an
sun.
issue. It's not an issue because they're not taking the sun from the north. They're taking the sun from the south.
So you're saying that if this is an array, if there's a tree right here, that tree's gonna stay right there?
I don't, I'd have to ask to Steve, but that's what he just explained.
Yep, that's what I just explained.
Maybe it'd be good to put the plan back up, because there's a north arrow
Yeah, get rid of this
on
guy.
the plan.
Yeah.
It shows everything.
Can we get rid of this?
Yeah, sure.
I'm okay with it. It just, I just wanted to,
Yeah, that's what I said.
thanks. Careful.
Yeah. Not the American flag, at least. Only Massachusetts. Okay. These are affecting shading from the west, correct?
Yep.
And the west in the summertime is still production, right? Production sunlight?
Yep.
So would you not need to hold back enough so that you're not shading them from this direction? I know most of it's coming here, but
Exactly. And on this site, it's not a typical site. In our models, we modeled 70-foot trees along the edge, exactly where they're shown on that plan. So when we do that and use those modules and do our model throughout the year, it makes enough production to make it worth it. Typically.
Because you get it from other locations on the
Right,
site.
and the site, the array is large, and if you look across here, it's wide. So even if you have shading here, you've still got all of this, you know, so
Yeah.
the width of it helps with the shading. So we've studied this, it's really
So-
important to put that in the model.
shading on this side doesn't make that much difference to you. That's what I'm hearing. So,
When we did the production model,
Yeah.
we took that into account.
okay,
Yep.
all right.
So where the tree line is shown, that's
Yeah.
where it will be marked by a surveyor in the field, and that's as far as they're gonna go, where that's shown on the plan.
I've got another question, follows from that, but Greg should finish his presentation first.
So we talked about, you know, I'm not sure we received confirmation on the underside of these panels. Are they going to be white, Steve?
They probably will be white, yeah.
Okay. All right. I've got to think that that would also, you know, be more apt to see, you know, through the potential screening here. We also feel, and I think this was part of Alicia's point, that once you clear all the trees in the array versus what we were seeing out there on Saturday or Sunday, it's going to be a light, like a light shone down on everything. And again, when you're trying to screen that, you're going to have a lot of light coming down. And we just feel that it's going to be really, really hard to screen that. You know, we still are concerned that these things seem really close to our homes. And by the way, those two mock arrays that were put up, that's not probably the closest to the Grecos. I'd be curious to see, once you start, you know, filling in those arrays going south, whether or not the Grecos or the McCarthys are going to start seeing those. For sure, you know, I'll be seeing that straight line across the top there, and then I believe going back. And, you know, another point is, what assurances do we have if the screening's not effective? We know that that soil
That's a good point.
is very difficult to plant in. The plants that they're talking about are not, they're non-native species to that area there. I think that that's a real
Yeah,
concern.
but I saw some very healthy arborvitaes in your yard.
Yeah, but they're not in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, but I believe there are some arborvitaes that look pretty poor over on KB's property.
Not taken care of.
Who's gonna be, somebody's gonna be out
Well,
there
first of
taking
all,
care of them?
Usually when you make a major planting,
Yeah.
you come in and you water it for the first year and make sure that it takes. That's part of the landscape plan.
I have a question for Greg.
Yeah.
How is this gonna impact your property values and all the abutters? How is it?
Wait a
How
minute,
is
you know,
it?
excuse me. You can't ask a question from the
Oh, I'm
floor.
sorry.
You know, if you do have a question, otherwise we just get a free-for-all. But if you have a question that you want to raise later, that's great, okay?
Okay. So another question that I have for you, Steve, is Is it customary for you guys to sell off these projects after they've been completed to a REIT or somebody?
To who?
Real estate investment trust or somebody like that?
The system?
Partnership flip after 6
Yeah.
years.
Are you, does Borrego hold on to all of their projects after?
No, it's sold to a power purchase agreement is made, and then someone would own the system.
Can you ask
Who would own the system?
I'm not sure what is gonna be at this point. It was talked about NRG owning it and it being community solar, and that's an option.
So the concern that I have for the planning board is, you know, Borrego is out of this, okay? We start having issues. These trees start dying. We start getting swampland out into the wetlands. Who do we go to? Where's the money going to come from if we have to go and rectify the situation?
To whoever is the current owner.
But that's not known.
Don't know.
Both.
This is typical of any real estate development transaction. That a developer will come in and they'll develop a piece of property and there will be conditions placed on the property and the conditions run with the property. And so, once they're transferred to a new owner, that new owner must accept these conditions as part of his ownership, his or her ownership. And these kind of conditions that I'm sure we'll be putting on this would go to the new owner. And they would be obligated to fulfill them.
Now, would this be in the form of a bond or escrow?
Well, we have a bond for a few things, but I'm not sure if it addresses that. We have a bond for and a surety for the decommissioning of the project once it's completed. And that's given by Borrego, and then if it needs to be updated, and if they're out of the picture, whoever his successors and assigns are.
If the applicant is not in compliance with the conditions, that's going to be a zoning violation.
Right.
So the town would have the right to impose fines on a daily basis for every day it's not in compliance.
I don't know if you've been at some of the meetings we've had where we've pulled a couple of developers who are doing work out on Route 1. Oh, believe me, we stay right on top of this stuff.
Excuse me, just a second. I believe we should point out that a special permit, like any other permit, runs with the land, not with the person that gets it, point one. The building inspector will give a permission to light this off when the time comes. You are planning on pulling a building permit, right?
Yes.
So that's a requirement. He doesn't get a building permit until this board is satisfied. And that building permit can go away if a successor company fails to live up to the deal. And we have the money that, let's say, a very worst case, somebody goes totally bust, they move to Saskatchewan, we're holding the baby, we have the money to tear those things down, and we have the trees to plant again. We're gonna need to find some volunteer help to plant them, but that isn't gonna be the hardest thing in the world. They're hanging on every bush, but literally.
So your questions are very, very good, because you're talking about the kind of concerns and contingencies that you need to have when you get into a complicated project like this. So they're good to mention them, but we have been thinking of some of them, and some of the ones you just talked about, maybe not so, okay?
All right, so I'm gonna submit this.
Okay.
And, you know, would definitely like you to take this in consideration.
Right, and we'll look at it. Martha will send it to us
Give me
tomorrow.
copies of that for, get it out of mind.
Would you like to?
Just one thing, as far as the landscaping and being worried about those plants, typically when you hire a
Martha,
landscaper, they
do you
give you
have
a
your
1-year guarantee.
decision criteria for everybody to
And
look at?
then, as part of O&M, whoever's gonna be coming out to the site, the board can make it a condition that you make sure that those plants are healthy.
So say, I don't wanna be coming here every year, right, to say, you've got 10 dead trees and then wait for somebody to go plant them. I mean, if that's what has to happen, that's what has to happen, but there's gotta be monies, and
Right.
people have to be willing to do that.
I concur.
anybody that we would sell this to, they get all the conditions, and they know what they have to follow. And all the decisions get recorded, and they run with the land. It's a legal thing. So, anybody who buys this knows what they're up against, and know that they have to keep those trees healthy. So, in my experience, they've done it.
Just want to make sure that's all in writing.
Alicia Greco, 3 Courtney Drive, kind of like dovetailing on this and trying to keep topics together. I too took a picture on Saturday, and I'm gonna email it to Martha. I'll show it to you on my phone. It's time-stamped, and it was from Greg's house, and it shows even more clearly. Must have been the sunshine. The sunshine must have been,
Just moved.
yeah, and there was no sunshine, as you know, on Saturday. So I'm gonna send that to Martha, and you guys can see it. But my concern is with the species that they're gonna plant, the mitigation for any type of a screening. I know the plan says arborvitaes, yews, and rhododendron, but the bylaw says it has to be in characteristic with that of the neighborhood, and those types of plants are in the neighborhood, but on manicured lawns. In the neighborhood, behind, starting at 1 Courtney Drive, and going to from 3 to 5 to 6 to 4 to 2, and even behind those people's houses back there, it's woodland. And to put a row of arborvitaes and yews, I mean, you may as well make it a beautiful,
The,
fence. It's not in characteristic with what the neighborhood is.
when the bylaw was created, we had no idea where it would need to be applied.
Correct.
And so the term of being in characteristics with the neighborhood meant to be, well, it might be close to a neighborhood and you didn't want to be out of characteristic to that. I don't think we had in mind woodlands like this. I
Right.
think that
But that being s-
our biggest concern is to be able to come up with a plant species that is hardy, that is durable, and that is big,
Indigenous.
and whatever that is.
And
it is-
grows fast.
And is coniferous and not deciduous. And so that might take some work to find, and I know that, that there are arborists around here who could help us find those
Yeah.
kinds of things.
But I think the bylaw is very well written, and kudos to you guys, whoever wrote it, because it's broad, but it's specific enough to not allow something what they're proposing to happen, to stick
Right.
out like a sore thumb in the middle of the woods. You may as well put like nothing, because your eye will be drawn straight to that large,
Right.
that doesn't
Right.
belong there.
No, we agree.
That's, and the other question I have while this is up here, it's, Steve, you can answer this. My property is here, okay? Now, I can see through here to this field here. You're not gonna cut any of this, right? So I won't see this.
Everything that's green is staying.
This is all staying.
Yeah.
So this is the cart path leading into here. This is gonna be cut, what here is gonna be cut, and none of this is gonna be cut as well?
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's clear. Thank you.
Would anyone else want to make a comment at this? JR and Marlene.
J.R. Colby, 31 Low Street. I just want to say I'm not here tonight to voice an opinion on this particular project, but I did visit the Marshall's home on, was it Sunday? Because I just missed you and George.
You were coming in when I was driving out.
Okay.
Right, and I would just like to say that I could see both mock-ups from inside of the Marshall's home, not at the edge of the pool. I was inside looking through a window.
Right. We know.
Whatever did he say?
Marlene?
He said he was at the Marshall's home on Sunday and could see the mock-ups from inside.
Oh, okay. So what?
Thank you.
Oh, Christ.
Marlene Schrader, 1 Anchor Way, Newbury, Massachusetts. I hope the planning board will take these points that I'm about to make into consideration as you make your decision. Because they do apply to the special permit that you will be deciding on.
Is this referencing DEP's most recently, their site walk based on the?
This is referencing information that we now know. And it is not necessarily about the DEP. It is about information that you will need to consider as you make your decision. It is now known information.
So does Doug have this? Doug Packer.
He was, the site walk that took place,
He was with you.
Doug was not on the sidewalk per se. He was there for the initial meeting, but neither he nor I went along with the DEP representatives. Who did? Steve, you were there. You're wetlands guy.
You went, Greg?
And Tracy, right?
Who went?
Yeah, okay, I'm talking about the key people. I know several neighbors went along. That wasn't my question. Okay, so you guys, you were represented. Tracy went along, was there, I believe.
Tracy?
Tracy Peter?
Peter.
Oh,
Yeah, not our Tracy, the other Tracy.
okay, so do you want to, we should just read this, or what?
and
would
I'd like to make a comment or two, but
You
I
make a
wanted.
comment, and we'll read
Yes.
it when we have more time.
All right. There were 3 confirmed vernal pools which are at or close to the 100-foot mark that have now been confirmed. And those are supposed to be included on the map that map and all the other.
When you say 100-foot mark, that's.
Buffer zone. Is that, you're
In the
thinking
hun-
of the buffer zone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And possibly more would have been seen if this had been conducted in the springtime, when that's the peak time of this. Errors were noted in the wetland and riverbank delineations, and in one place, the flags for the riverbank delineations were in the water. An incorrect riverbank delineation will result in an incorrect Extent of Rivers Act delineation, which is the riparian zone. Also, we already know about the stormwater, so I don't need to mention that. I would like to have you especially note that Borrego has not presented a credible wildlife assessment, and the Conservation Commission did not request an independent wildlife assessment. Under the special permit rules, the Planning Board has broad jurisdiction over the wildlife habitat as a whole. It doesn't say separately wetland habitat or upland habitat, it says wildlife habitat. Given this Planning Board responsibility and the inadequacies of the Concom orders identified by the DEP, the Planning Board should require an independent assessment of wildlife habitat as a whole to fulfill their responsibility. A complete picture of wildlife habitat is important because some vernal pool obligate, those are the critters that have to be in a vernal pool in order to survive, and facultative, those are the ones you often find there but don't necessarily require it, depend both on upland and wetland habitat during a full year, 4-season life cycle. Furthermore, it is important to know that just not vernal pool habitat is a part of this wildlife habitat, but all habitats and all wildlife. So I think that the responsible action for the Planning Board to take is a wildlife habitat of the whole thing, the whole enchilada. Additionally, the impact of clear-cutting a large number of trees and the loss of extensive tree canopy, the uplands, wetlands, and the Parker River watershed has not been addressed. The state, you may not know, the state has declared the Parker River a stressed river for several years now. In the summer months, the flow is just a trickle. Byfield Water Company has restricted summer use for several years. It's a well-established fact that cutting trees decreases accumulation of water in the river, leading to dewatering of the river. The presence of trees facilitates the accumulation of water. Although this parcel is not on the immediate riverbanks of the Parker River main stem, it is on the banks of Cart Creek, which flows into the Parker River. Whatever happens in a watershed ultimately affects the main stem of a river in some way. At the Conservation Commission hearing, I made this statement, that with the exception of our now capped Newbury landfill, this project would cause more environmental harm than any other project in Newbury that I can recall in the 40 years that I've lived in this community. And I repeat that here tonight. I believe it would be an irreparable mistake to destroy these natural resources. And I ask you to consider what Newbury, your community, my community, our community, would lose. And I ask you to deny this environmentally inappropriate project. Thank you for thinking of these points.
Thank you, Marlene. Unfortunately, you had not been made aware of the fact that we did hire Wetland Strategies and Solutions, Matt, what's his last name? Schweisberg. And he just delivered to us this morning a wetlands analysis for the property. We haven't had time to really digest it, and so it's one of the reasons why, even though we'd like to go through most of the items tonight, this would be deferred because the board hasn't had an opportunity, nor have the community seen this report yet. So we just got it. But I just looked at it. I got it around 5 o'clock tonight, and I went and I leafed through it, and you know, it has the kind of information that you would expect in a detailed analysis of what was the what are the characteristics of the wildlife area, what is the probability of wildlife habitat in there, et cetera. So you'll get it. Do you have any copies?
I've got hard copies,
Okay.
if people
I
want to
couldn't
take
print
them.
this, it printed weird.
Oh, really?
For some reason.
So,
Yeah.
so can you, but we don't have them for everybody, but we can give them to the principal owners and,
I can I've got about 10 or 15
10?
here, and I can send it electronically, but I
so
thought
why don't we give hard copies to,
To-
you know, like the property owners and to Marlene, and you have one, and you have one.
John, can I just ask a question?
Yes,
I read through it all.
yep.
I don't know, if I could speak to some points in here.
We haven't read it.
We haven't read it yet. And so we're just gonna have to, I think that would be, don't you concur?
That's why I'm asking.
I mean, he certainly can discuss, but I don't know what impact that's going to have.
Right.
Having not read it
See, I'd
yourself,
rather have us read it,
You lack the context.
and then you comment on it as, we're gonna continue this to the 16th, we have to, because we just got it. I mean, I'm sorry, we can't get something on the day of the meeting and digest it, just can't do it.
Also, I think as you fulfill your planning board responsibility, when the Conservation Commission gets the reply from the DEP, it will contain information that you'll want to consider as you make your decision.
Although I need to talk to Doug and others about, John,
Yeah.
do you think that when the DEP decides what they're going to do,
Yeah.
does it affect the decision we make on our items?
Well, probably not directly, but it will in a roundabout way,
I
because
thought.
it'll affect what Borrego is allowed to proceed with.
Right.
If they say, okay, it's all right, but modify this, this, and this,
Yeah.
they have to modify it or they're in violation. At that point, that becomes, correct me if I'm wrong, that becomes a new plan. So now we're looking at a new plan. So yeah, to that extent, it does affect our
So what
decision.
okay, so what, do we have any sense for when they'll be coming back with a
I have
decision?
not heard. Do you know, Marlene? You must have gotten the backdoor feedback on their comments. Have you gotten any info on when they're
No,
gonna?
all I've heard is what what Tracy Peter told me.
At the hearing,
Yes.
at the site visit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Told me-
nobody knows what
She told
DEP
me
is.
about the vernal pools and the delineation
Okay.
stuff.
So my question is, does anybody know when DEP is going to respond? And I guess the answer is no, they don't.
Steve?
Well, I have not received anything. I've asked Phil DePietro to, if he has any comments. He's supposed to issue a letter which will define what the inconsistencies are, if there are any.
Yeah.
And what we have to address.
Sure.
I believe he has a 60-day timeline from the time the appeal was filed.
That was
Right.
October.
To issue that letter.
Was it October 15th or something?
Yeah.
Do anybody
So
remember?
He has a deadline, but that can be extended if he does not, once he issues that letter and asks for other items, then that deadline gets extended. But he has to issue that letter within a certain time.
Okay, when he asks for additional information, you mean? Okay,
Yes.
Okay, let's put that for a side.
so
Alicia,
that's up for grabs, we don't know.
another comment?
Yeah, so I just have a comment about the, because it was mentioned, Greg, the operation and maintenance plan.
Yep.
Are they going to, are you gonna see that, or will you have input of what's gonna be in it?
We will have input. What I think we worked out was that we can issue the permit, but we can't issue a building permit until the O&M has been concluded. So we would condition our approval upon having worked with the building superintendent and making sure that no building permit is given until the O&M is approved
Is approved by whom?
by the building, well,
Well, us and.
us and the building
And-
commissioner.
Okay, so
building
you'll have
inspector.
input on
Yeah.
that? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Dan?
So I think, looking at this map, okay, and my whole biggest thing on this thing is property value. We're all in that Greg's backyard, not mine, because it couldn't see anything from my yard, because they don't have a mark up there. You guys can't prove that, you guys can't tell me that, no, there's not gonna affect any property value. Courtney won, all right? When all summer long, it was an enormous, real estate market over the summer. It didn't sell for a reason, because we couldn't deceive a buyer. The real estate people could not deceive a buyer and tell them that this thing was going in the back. You couldn't deceive them. As soon as they heard that, everybody backed off. So I don't hear anybody talking about this. Isn't this part of the bylaw, if it has a property value problem, that this thing wouldn't pass for that
Yeah,
reason?
we're intending to go through the here's what
I'm just saying, just let me finish. When I was in his backyard and I saw that thing as clear as bell, those pictures are not what I saw in that backyard. They're not. There was a lot, you could see it a lot better than that, all right, than what those pictures were. And, you know, we all say, all this vegetation's gonna work. Everybody's on board. The vegetation's gonna work. I'm telling you, if I go to sell my house in 2 or 3 years from now, my kids are older, I've been there 18 years, 19 years, or whatever I've been there. All of us have been, I mean, and then the Rizzos, those guys, everybody, if you go over and take a look at their property, right, they're not talking about being lower. We get 5 to 6 inches of rain, and when these things happen at one time, we haven't seen it for a while, but we see it. Water's gonna go downhill. He's lower. Go and take a look in the front of their place. That place is a river when they get a lot of water. Their houses are set back here, but in the front, it all becomes water.
I'm not sure what properties you're talking about.
It's what number are you guys?
150.
150, the Rizzos, they're all in that whole thing. They get all this.
Oh, on Main Street.
Yeah, so it's not just Courtney Drive, it's affecting Main Street too. It's, it's all going downhill. I want to talk about property value. That's what I'm interested in. I know you guys, maybe you guys aren't. I am. Because we all have assets on the street. I worked all my life for this asset and other assets that I have. But, bottom line is, that's what I'm interested in. When I see this map and I see the size of this thing, it's a power station. One time they talked about going to Beverly. Go take a look at Beverly. We've looked at Beverly. It's at an airport. It's one of my accounts that I work for at the airport. It's all industrial area. You cannot use that comparing this. This is Woodlands. Go take a look at the Beverly one.
Well, we have.
And you're telling me it looks like this?
I'm telling you that the adjacent neighborhood, which is in, I think, Topsfield.
No, it's not. It's in
Wenham?
Wenham.
Wenham
is pretty far away from that, where that's gonna be.
Same distance.
Same distance.
I don't think so, because I was out
Yeah,
there too.
same
Yeah.
distance.
It's
It
nothing
is.
but.
That's all, that's,
Yeah. Anyway, that,
I'm just, that's
But,
my whole thing. I mean,
Show me after, because I didn't see
so
this,
that the fellow behind you would like to chat.
Bill True, 150 Main Street. A little over 21 years ago, my wife and I looked at our property. We looked around. We knew there wasn't going to be a highway, underpass, or a factory going in. We counted on the town. We trust the town would do right by us. We moved in '94. And 4 years later, it was the weekend of June 13th, '98. I was at work, and we got 12 inches of rain, I believe. And the water levels rose and rose and rose, and they were within 3 inches of the bottom of my French drain. And I knew if we had another couple inches, I was gonna get flooded. So the water was all around my land. I'm at one of the low spots. I'm at 69 feet, that's at 79 feet. When I asked them about it, I didn't get an answer. This is gonna go from a tree-laden area to a big open area that's gonna now drive a lot of surface water. And that surface water is gonna go somewhere. If that's at 79 feet and I'm 10 feet below it, where's it gonna go? I don't know. I think that the stormwater mitigation plan for this needs to be top site civil and probably structural elements. There needs to be some serious stuff, maybe even pumping stations. But that has to be perfect before I would accept this. So I'm asking you to hold up, hang on, I want to be able to trust that you're going to pay attention to every aspect of this.
And the stormwater approval is not given by the planning board. It's given by the Conservation Commission. And that's already been given, but their decision.
Without a plan, sir?
No, with a plan. And their decision has been, what do you call it?
Appeal, yeah.
So it's being appealed, and DEP is looking at it, and this is what we were just talking about.
Yep.
And if they come back and say, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, then they have to adjust the plan.
Okay, photovoltaic installations fall into kind of three groups. On your roof of a residence, doesn't seem to impact anybody. On a commercial level, 10, 50 kilowatts on a flat roof, it's a positive thing. Then you've got utility scale solar farms, that's what this is. If this goes in, it's setting the precedent across the town, there's gonna be a shutter across the town, and you're gonna get fewer people interested in moving to this town, and houses turning over, and continuous increase in value of homes. I think this is the start of something terrible, and that's all I wanna say.
Okay, thank you.
John Isner, 151 Main Street. I'm just here to back up the Courtney Drive residents. I just don't understand, this is a silly place for a solar farm. It's in a residential neighborhood. Granted, it is off the main street, but they're still gonna see it. It will affect their property values. And who's this gonna benefit? Clearly, it's gonna be a deficit for them. Who is this gonna benefit? I mean, the owner clearly is gonna financially benefit from it, and they're gonna suffer. So, you know, the greater good, I think, outweighs everything in this case. I think that needs to be taken into consideration.
Thank you.
My name is Rich Moran. I live at 4 Courtney Drive. One of the things, when we talk about restoration of the property at the end of the project, just a little bit of history here. When European settlers came to New England, they virtually deforested Massachusetts entirely. And as in that case, it was to plant agricultural crops. When agriculture was scaled back in the mid-1800s, secondary growth started to take over some of those fields. Those forests did not mature until the 1960s. So you're talking about, well, we're going to go out there, we're going to plant some little trees, and some volunteers are going to go out there and we'll have a nice picnic lunch and everything will be fine. You're talking 200 years from now, that thing will be back for the sake of 20 years of power and 20 years of tax revenue. I just think it's an abominable idea to clear cut this forest for the promise of a little bit of electricity and a little bit of tax revenue. That's all I have to say.
So we're about to go into a little bit of deliberation, so before we do that, because we're gonna go through the decision criteria, let me just explain what we're gonna do. We have two decision criteria that we have to go through. The first is the open space and agricultural plan, and the second is the decision that that we have to go through. There's like 10 items, 12 items that we have to discuss. We are not gonna make a decision tonight, but I wanna get a sense for how the board feels about all these issues. And then I'm gonna ask the town planner to draw up a decision, or draw up a summary of the things we've talked about. We will probably take a straw poll at the end. It's not a decision. A straw poll to see the attitude of board members towards the issues that, as we're going through them. And then, hopefully we can conclude it. And then, as I said, we will carry the meeting forward to 2 weeks from tonight.
John?
Yes.
I've got a couple of issues with coming up with an opinion tonight, because there's still a couple of issues that are flapping in the breeze. You know,
I concur, John.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna solve everyone.
Yeah.
But I thought if we went through the list, we'd see, well, this isn't a problem, this isn't a problem.
Yeah.
But we can then point and say, well, this might.
this are, yeah,
are.
and I.
And those would be the ones you're
Yeah,
concerned
and,
with.
and my opinion is going to be not so much as will they be solved, but how are they going to be
Right.
solved?
Right.
You know,
So if you could hand the stuff out.
Before I do that, also, in connection with the discussion about property values, we did also get a letter from Pat Skibby, River Valley Real Estate, with her opinion on impact
Okay,
of that. So I'll send that around for the
Fine, I
record.
have a quick question.
okay.
I took the liberty of creating a table, and it's 6 pages long, and it goes through the bylaw, and where I find that I think that it's not in compliance, and it's six pages. I can email this to you guys, or I can give it to you, hand it to you now. If you'll find it helpful, I'm not sure. I don't know how you want to do it.
I think it'd be helpful if we go through these criteria and see what the attitude of the board members is on each one of these issues.
Okay, and then if we're all in agreement, I'll circle them, and then we don't even have to look at them.
All right, and some of these, I think that there's a few issues out there that are out there. Greg?
John, would it be possible, this is just on another point that's been made before you deliberate?
Sure.
I was gonna hold off on this because you were continuing it, but given that, you're going to deliberate, I'd be happy to send that to you electronically. But, obviously, seeing these panels from inside my home, 4 different windows, have a huge concern. I think had we put up more panels, I think my neighbors would have seen these as well. But what I did was I went out and I looked at another project. We've asked for this where it abuts a residential neighborhood and was not on an industrial
This is
site.
really interesting.
So there is a project
It's a pretty-
in Mattapoisett that was built, it was approved in 2013 and put up sometime after that. So I took some overheads just with my iPhone. You can see kind of the before and after. These are from Google Maps and Zillow. It appears to be somewhere between 2 and 3 megawatts. I couldn't find the exact amount. It said 12,000 panels, okay? The road that's closest to this installation is Shady Oak Drive. And I went to see if there were any real estate transactions on Shady Oak Drive, and I found 2. So the first one was 14 Shady Oak Drive. Went on the market on June 6, 2014. Original list price $410,000. Final sales price $342,500. That was a 16.5% reduction from list price. The second property was 6 Shady Oak Drive. That one, interestingly enough, was listed for sale, right after the approval on the 2nd of May, 2013. It started at $324,900, sold for $268,000, a 17.5% reduction from the original list price. And I can only assume, without doing a ton of research here, that the original list price was close to market price. But that is not normal. What I normally see, I've done a lot of real estate transactions, I've talked to people, I have one property for sale right now, is about a 5% reduction from an original list price. So this takes me to the really important point, and what really makes me sick here is 1 Courtney Drive. So 1 Courtney Drive originally listed at $669,900. I'm not speaking for Dan or Gene, I'm just speaking for myself here, what I have observed. So they've dropped the price $60,000, they could not sell it in a very hot market. They dropped the price 9%. And there's a letter in here from the realtor after everybody visited, and it is clear people walked away from that because of the solar installation. So they've dropped it 9%. Do they have to drop it another 8% to get to 17.5%, or another $50,000 to sell that property like the folks had to do on Shady Oak Drive? And I want to comment on a point that the board made. I wasn't here for that meeting, but the comment was made about the perception of this installation going in and people not knowing what it's going to be, right? But I argue that even once it's in there, people, they don't build houses next to these installations, or they rarely put these installations a few hundred feet within a house, okay? So anybody who's looking to buy a property, myself included, I ask you to put yourself in our shoes. Do you want a big power plant in your backyard? What are the uncertainties, even when it's up, right? Is my dog gonna run under the fence? What's gonna happen when they're roaming in a solar field? They don't know. You can tell them till they're blue in the face, nothing's gonna happen. What happens if my kid is wandering out in the woods, goes under that fence? There's a lot of unknowns, and I agree that real estate can be very subjective, okay? But this is not subjective. This is a massive power plant a few hundred feet from some residences surrounded by wetland, okay? And when you take out those trees, there will be an impact to that ecosystem out there. And we don't know for sure what that impact is going to be, okay? But we've heard of infestation of rodents, mosquitoes, the visibility impact. Do I want to be looking at rhododendrons in the middle of the woods flowering in the spring? It's going to look horrible. So, anyway, sorry for raising my voice, but this is obviously something that we're very passionate about.
So we have numerous letters from brokers that contradict what you say.
Really?
Yes, we do. And we can share one of them with you that we just received. And that talk about the fact that it would be a great addition and that it's not a negative unless it can be seen. Well,
We all sign letters, John.
well, this is the problem. You've made a position, and so we've had to. Excuse me. None of that. Okay, I'm sorry. You can't. You can. To whom it may concern, from Patricia Lang Skibby, real estate broker, West Newbury, Mass. This letter is written to support proposed solar or energy array installation on the SR property off Main Street in Byfield section of the town of Newbury. Both in Salisbury and Groveland, there are now major solar arrays. They are passive once installed, using the sun's power to provide energy to all of us without generating more harmful carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. I strongly support having Newbury Byfield join this new environmentally responsible energy generating technology. The Asir land seems an appropriate location for such a positive undertaking. The proposed project would use about 11 acres of the total 93 acres and would generate 2.7 megawatts of electricity without polluting the atmosphere. The remainder of the land, 82 acres, in my understanding, would remain as it is, some used for farming, blah, blah. A condition of approval should be the planting of dense and deep evergreen screen between any residences and solar panels blocking visibility from the houses in all seasons. So it goes on. So we, and we.
Support anything in West Newbury? She's from West Newbury, so she support this in West Newbury?
I don't know. She wasn't asked.
She's not supporting in her backyard.
She wasn't asked that. But we do have others that we've received from people and that indicate. Again, yes, if it was visible, it would have an impact. And the other thing, I have to be honest with you. I mean, I've tried to think about this myself, and I've thought of how this is positioned and how it is currently positioned. And in your minds, it's currently positioned as an industrial use. In my mind, it's a passive solar for which you're going to have major conservation benefits because the assayors have talked about dedicating the majority, if not all of this land into conservation in perpetuity. And all of a sudden, if you look at that perspective, that you have, instead of the possibility that the assayors could build anything they want back there.
What do you mean by anything?
Well, they can build, how many houses? They could build 30, 40 houses back
I would
there.
love to have that.
They could just farm it. I mean, he can do a lot of things, but the point is, he can do this as opposed to having the conservation easement for in perpetuity. That's a tremendous benefit to the town and to the people who are adjacent to it.
Can I ask you, where is this, when this electricity is being produced, where's it going? It's not even going to Byfield. It's not even going to.
Well,
Where is it going?
they're talking about the fact that it's capable of being bought by the immediate adjacent neighborhood. They made that discussion.
Haverhill and Lawrence.
Well, they made that
places like
discussion, they did make that discussion last week.
That's a benefit to Newbury, West Newbury, I mean, to Newbury, isn't it?
What?
Going to
No, the
Lawrence?
discussion, Dan, the discussion last week, I think you may not have been here, was that they were talking about a community-oriented energy where the affected neighbors could buy into this system and they could benefit from it.
But it is gonna go to Haverhill and
I don't
Lawrence.
know, well, it's also gonna go to you if you want it.
If I could make a quick comment,
Sure.
counter comment to what you had said.
Sure.
To put together a photovoltaic cell, the amount of energy, the carbon that goes into it, the labor, it's referred to as a carbon legacy or carbon embodiment. Those cells have to be in operation roughly 50% of their life cycle before they even equal the carbon that they offset. What this is it's a financial transaction. You put these in, it's flipped after the 5-year IRS rule. In year 6, they flip it as an investment. What they're getting is roughly 40 cents a kilowatt hour for the net metering credits and the SRECs. It's lucrative. It's a financial deal. It's not benefiting this. It's not benefiting us. It's not benefiting the town. This is a financial trick. Not a trick. It's a legal thing that is going to go away when the investment tax credits go from 30% to 10% after 2016. You will see these things change. If that sunsets, all these deals are going to go away. This is a financial transaction. This is not good for the environment. As I said, you can look it up. The IEEE has an article on it, and you look at really what goes on when you make photovoltaics. Today, it's a dirty business with a very high carbon footprint. This does not, in the end, help the environment. It's purely a financial thing. A financial thing that's benefiting very few and hurting lots.
Alicia?
So, I don't know if you got, this board has these letters, but you have one letter from a real estate broker, but we had 5 when it was before the Board of Selectmen. This is from a real estate broker, Coldwell Banker. In my professional opinion, having sold real estate in the town of Newbury for 20 years and also a resident in Newbury for 30 years, there is no doubt who or what is next door can affect how much people will pay for a home. You can expect property values to drop more than 15% if the solar farm is built. Everyone loves alternatives to fossil fuels, but in the right setting, not in their front door, not in front of their front door. There is no hard facts with solar farms affecting home value sales right now, but we do know home values drop when close to highways, shopping areas, rundown properties, and high-tension lines. Buyers do care what is next door. This is just one letter. We had 5 of these, and I don't know if it's part of the record in this one. I know it was before the other one, if it all came through,
I don't
but
remember, we should have it.
I don't remember seeing that letter.
I don't remember
at
seeing
all.
that.
I'll get to
It was in the book that you gave us.
To whom were these letters addressed, Alicia?
This is to whom it may concern.
I'm sorry? Oh,
So it wasn't to Jeff.
It was in the neighborhood package.
Nope, we went to 5 different real estate that have property here. And another thing I just wanted to make clear, what's going on in West Newbury, the properties, it's very trendy right now. It's in fact, West Newbury has a solar program, but these programs are for benefiting municipalities, and most of them, if not all of them, are sited on brownfields, dumps, rooftops. Not one is clear-cutting forested land. You cannot compare apples to oranges. This is why the one in Newbury, on the other side of town, on Middle Road, sailed through. It's on a brownfield, it's appropriately sited. This is a whole different ball of wax, and you cannot compare the two, at least in my opinion.
Yeah,
There's no public benefit to this at all.
Just one more statement.
all right, and that's it.
All right, okay. At the end, when all this is done, if, God forbid, if it does happen, and property values do go down, can somebody put in writing something about maybe getting us abatements for, well, what are you laughing about? I'm
Well,
asking a serious
yeah,
question.
Yes, I don't think,
Isn't it,
here's the thing.
Isn't that, wait a minute, let's reverse it. If you lived on Courtney Drive, wouldn't you be saying the same thing that I'm saying right now? Wouldn't you expect something in return? Why would you take this hit? Would you want to take that hit? Let me ask the whole board. Would you take the hit? Would you take the hit?
$150,000 potential hit to
I know. With all you board people, would you take the hit, or would you try to get an abatement for your taxes? If you took that, if all this is said and done, all up, and I go to sell my house in 3 years, and it's assessed.
The answer is I would not.
I lose $100,000.
The answer is I would not go for an abatement. Because that.
Hey, you know what, I love Newbury.
No, because then all of a sudden
I'll just take the hit.
you drive down, if you do, then you drive down the value of the entire street.
Right.
Because you've done that. But if you keep the abatement where, the property value where it is, then you're much more likely to get that price in the future than the price that you've driven it down to.
You're never gonna get it in the future. It's just gonna cost, it's
No,
gonna
you-
be there for 20 years.
Well, there's such a thing as glass half empty, well, okay.
That's all I'm saying. I guess you guys should be willing to take that, yes.
Okay.
I know.
All right, so,
So,
do I have this stuff?
Martha still has it.
Martha, hand it out.
So-
Okay, so during this period of time, while we're kind of talking among ourselves, there's really no public comment. After we finish, you can have all sorts of public comment, okay? But this is just among the board right now.
Oh. No.
Hand that out to as many of the people in the audience that, we have a lot of copies here.
Yeah.
And so let's see if you can hand it so they can see what we're doing. Please make sure that each one of the homeowners gets one. So, actually, before we get into the special permit review criteria, which are D, 01A through I, and the subsequent SPGA granting authority is 02A through N. I wanted to have a discussion about two things, and the first is because they relate to a lot of the issues that are being discussed by everyone here, and that is this whole issue of landscaping and screening. Our bylaw clearly states that the array must be unseen from adjacent property lines all time of the year. It's not, even though we walked in the back of the properties most of the time, and then Alicia brought us into the property line, the bylaw says that you can't see the array at any time from December, or from January until December. It doesn't use those words, but basically says at all times of the year. And so, in order to do that, and because of the nature of the planting, I guess I want to get from Borrego and from Cavey your sense of how willing you are to ensure that that aspect of our criteria is met. So, you're okay.
Don't do with that. I think we're providing a pretty solid screen.
And so what I would suggest is along these lines of screening, that in the next 2 weeks you work with the town planner to develop a screening program that's acceptable to the town planner and to the board when we meet next. And that along the lines of the questions that have been raised about what happens if they die, I'm also interested in, well, what happens if what you put in originally isn't enough? And that you are willing, with clear understanding, that we'd go back to the back of Jean's property, the back of Greg's property, and then also in the areas which are landscaped, and see, in fact, if it's working. And so, right?
I've done it at other towns.
Right. So in so that we want to write this into, you see what I'm getting at? So that if in 6 months it is not working, or hasn't accomplished its goal, that we go back and address it and make it work.
Yeah.
All right?
I'd like to throw in something else there. Alicia mentioned something, and I didn't admit to you, Alicia, that I thought of that the week before. But what the concern that I have is, you know, if I walk into the woods, I can go a certain distance. You're standing at the edge of the woods, you can't see me. But guess what? I can see you, because you're backlit, in effect. Okay, you're standing in the sunshine. So, I want to throw on the table the possibility of the question of, is it possible to clear cut a certain portion behind enough so that you are indeed backlit, and have another look, and be sure that the screening is adequate.
One of the
I
problems.
just think
Huh?
you're pushing the limit there. I mean,
You're what?
you're never gonna know how far you'd have to go. I mean, you can say, oh, that's enough, that's enough. I just don't think
Well,
that, I mean.
I don't think you need to clear cut the whole thing to know. You need to
But I
clear
think-
cut, 30 feet, something of that order.
Well,
Right, go back up there.
yep. I can tell you what I've done with a couple other boards, is once the system is installed and in place, I've gone back and looked from points of view around the property and and looked around and see, can you see it? And if you can, then you go stand, okay, this is where it's gotta go. You get a real clear line, you can stand out in the woods or wherever and find the spot that's gonna work the best. Once it's in, you'll know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just guessing. And it's been part of the approval. That will come back once it's installed. We'll go out with the whole planning board. It's better to have a few, and walk the site and see where we should place landscaping. It's the best way to do it. Otherwise, you're guessing. If you cleared the whole site just to see where the light shines, that doesn't help really.
No, I'm not suggesting that.
Or even part, it's not
Yeah.
helping. I think once the site's in, then you go put landscaping that's gonna screen it appropriately.
Okay. One issue is that line, that green line, the limits of the existing vegetation, is right up snug against the nearest array to Courtney Drive. So you don't have a lot of room to be playing games, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to be cutting down trees so you can replace them with screening trees. That kind
Well,
of seems a
what
little
I've done, what I've done
counterproductive.
also is put in some saplings or smaller trees that you can walk into the woods
Yeah.
and plant one at a time.
Yeah.
Or 3 at a time. It's something that somebody could carry in, take a pickaxe, make a hole, put some
Yeah.
trees in, and just plant a few and not a whole row. But something that would block it. Something that you could carry in one at a time.
Yeah, and that also grows fast, I think.
Right,
that's-
exactly.
You've got some
Something-
trees that make very good screens that grow at 3+ feet a year under the right conditions. Once they figured out they belong there. They don't do 3 feet the first year, but they will.
Right. But that's how you would do it. You could take something smaller and plant it where it's gonna block.
Maybe if that got verbalized and
Yeah.
put that in writing, Steve?
All right.
That
We've done it
proposal?
before, yep.
Any comments on this issue, landscaping, from you guys?
Yeah, Alicia and others mentioned that the general landscaping of the neighborhood is supposed to be reflected on that in the array, and we have a site that has trees all over the place, so that's different from the neighborhood per se. So some of the plantings perhaps ought not to be rhododendrons, because flowering in the spring, that might not be the place to have them, but there are plenty of other bushes or shrubs or trees that can go in there. No?
I'll work with Martha to come up
Okay.
with a more appropriate.
That's good.
Roadies shrivel up in December.
Yeah,
Look awful.
any cold day, they go, shh.
Jim?
Well, I think this issue is huge, that we do need to have adequate screening. And I think, what specific tree or species we plant is, that's
Jim,
leave that
could
up
you
to.
speak up? I'm
Yeah,
out
you
of the
can.
loop
I-
here entirely, and I am a planning board.
Well, I think this,
Sorry, yeah.
this issue is huge, that, the screening is extremely important.
Yeah.
And when I've spoken with real estate agents, they point out, it should be screened.
Yeah.
That's important.
I think we all agree
And-
with that.
But I think specifically what species we plant is something that is better left to a landscaper. And I think if we put some teeth into this, where we come back after the planting and see that these trees take and grow and do what they're supposed to do, that seems to me to be a pretty reasonable and very good thing to do.
I agree.
I buy that, yeah, I think that's very good. George, what was it that you said? I'm sorry. but-
What I was saying is that
You know, you
the
mumble and-
bylaw says that plantings, thank you, John.
You mumble.
The plantings ought to be consistent with the plantings in the neighborhood, and
Yeah.
that's not realistic in this type of situation where you have the array in the woods.
Well, that's what
That-
our bylaw says.
Yeah, but the bylaw in that sense doesn't really work, because the plantings ought to be something else other than what you would find in the neighborhood plantings around the house,
Yeah.
okay?
Well, I'm not concerned about the odd rhododendron. The rhododendron grow all over the place on the East Coast. And, Maudsley is full of them. And Maudsley's a very nice place. I don't think it's going to look ugly, Greg. I really don't. I also don't think it should be all rhododendron by any means.
Thank you.
I mean, the odd one here and there, if that works.
Yeah, roadies would look good, though, if they could get them. Of course, those are 150 years old.
Yeah, well, these will be too eventually.
But in Maudsley, they're like a jungle. Yeah, you can't see through them. They are thick.
Anything further on this issue of the planting? The next thing I want to talk about before we go through the details is the whole thing on the conservation easement.
The what?
The conservation
Yeah.
easement, which I wanted to see if I can clarify this. I know that you've not done work and you want to make sure that you've got the deal before you hire an attorney. But I think that in our prior discussions, the board, and I want to hear them further on it, but let me put on what I think where we thought we were, was that the conservation easement would be in perpetuity for all of the property around the solar array, but that once the solar array was extinguished, that the conservation easement would accrue to that as well,
To the,
to the 13 acres.
to the 13 acres. No, so there's 96 acres. 20 acres is my grandmother's, which is a part of her.
Right, and so that's not what we're considering.
Yeah,
That's
so
not-
everything outside of the array will go into conservation easement. The 14 acres will not be part of that at the end. I don't wanna, the family, our attorneys, everybody does not wanna commit to that 14 acre after the 20 years, as of right now.
So that will stay unencumbered in perpetuity? Is that what I'm hearing?
No.
What I'm saying is,
No.
that potentially will go into conservation
Oh, it
easements.
will?
Potentially, I'm not going to.
Okay.
You know, based on my attorney's feedback, I'm not going to commit to that now. 20
Yeah.
years is a long time, I don't know
Sure.
what, we might renew in 20 years to continue to the solar.
Well,
I'm happy to negotiate that.
we're happy if you did.
68, I will say this, we are providing the vast majority, I think it's roughly 60 acres into restriction, you know, some form of conservation / agricultural. We just, you know, on this piece, we don't want to make that decision right now. We feel that's fair.
That could be a sticking point.
Look, I'm happy to have that conversation, and we can, you know, I can have my attorney reach out to your, you know,
Okay.
the town attorney, we can negotiate, but
Well, I think that you ought to do that sooner rather than later.
My understanding from previous discussions was that was going to go into the conservation area at whatever point it stopped being used for the solar array.
That's right.
Which wouldn't necessarily be at the end of 20 years, could be.
Right, could be
Could
30.
be re-upped.
So
yeah,
that's,
so let's do this,
that's our understanding.
Yeah, so we'll table that, I'll have my attorney reach out.
Okay.
Why don't they can discuss this back and
Okay.
forth, and we can negotiate on the terms of that.
But each of these two items will be conditions. Okay? All right? All right, now, so we have, everybody have this thing in front of them?
Yep.
Uh,
D1?
Yeah, D1, open space and agricultural impact. So we have just received again today, all of this information we had before when it was submitted to the Board of Selectmen, but we just again received today Borrego's updated open space and agricultural impact report. We just got it, okay? So we'll make copies for everybody. It's similar to what they submitted to the Board of Selectmen, but they've updated it. So there's now 13 acres, and so they've done that. So we have the report, but I do want to go through the details of this, because some of these issues are the responsibility of the Concom, and some of them are our. So what it says is the owner of the land on which the large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installation is proposed to be situated must submit to the SPGA a report on the open space impacts of the installation, including but not limited to a general description of the installation site, including proximate natural features, flora, fauna, wetlands, and waterways. Now, I just did have the time to look through this. There's about 5 or 6 rather exhaustive descriptions of the site. And so that's in this report. The second is any trees and wildlife to be displaced by the installation. So we had always had the information on the trees, but we didn't on the wildlife. And so that's why we asked Matt to do this study which we gave to you. And so we also just got this today, and so we'll be reviewing this. And so it's, the wildlife is something that we can't make a decision on right now because we haven't read it. But the trees, we understand what that is.
Can I just throw in something here?
Yeah.
Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen any evidence that, other than commercial logging operations, there's any legal way that a town can say you can't cut down trees on your property. As I understand it, you can cut them down for agricultural purposes, for trimming, for maintenance, and for a change of use that is otherwise permitted. Is that correct? Am I thinking correct there?
There are certainly certain zoning bylaw provisions that would allow a town to prevent that.
Yeah.
I wasn't asked this question before, so I haven't gone through yours.
With the which?
Said I haven't been asked that question before, so
Okay.
I haven't gone through yours to see if there
Okay.
is such a provision. It could be something, like a stormwater provision in a bylaw that would prevent clear cutting.
Okay. I'm not aware of any town restriction, but I'm just looking in terms of,
Right, well, so what I'm saying
of
is
a
theoretically
state
there could be, but I haven't
enablement.
checked. Because that's sort of an abstract question.
Okay.
All right.
I guess that answers the question. So basically, the town can encumber property and prevent the cutting down of trees if it is in the zoning
Yeah, under
bylaw.
certain bylaw provisions. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, item C is any efforts to mitigate groundwater management issues caused by increased and impervious surface. So that's the stormwater report, right?
I'm sorry, where were we? I'm sorry,
C.
John. I was making a note.
C.
C, okay. Yeah, that is in the lap of the gods.
That's in-
That's, DEP is gonna come back with the answer on that one.
Clarification question. Bless you. You had said that some of this special permit, you probably gonna have to answer this. You had said that some of the special permit, review criteria falls under the
Concom.
purview of the Conservation Commission?
Mhm.
But the Conservation Commission did not look at this document at all.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did,
Hasn't
but,
said everyone?
I know, but they also made decisions about stormwater and the like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
The-
not as it pertains to the special permit, as it pertains to
Well-
wetland protection.
Actually,
Not special permit.
actually, the bylaw, Alicia, the zoning, I'm sorry, the stormwater, there's a stormwater bylaw, it's in zoning. It's equivalent to zoning. It's not in zoning, but it's separate, but it's equivalent. And then there are rules and regulations. Those rules and regulations are under the purview of the Conservation Commission. Now, they not only include, and the town has a right to do this, as far as we can find out, the town council was happy with it. It also includes upland areas, okay?
So stormwater.
The stormwater does not limit itself to Chapter 131 sections of town. In other words, the Concom has the authority to enforce stormwater regulations in the entire town.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Just to
and-
clarify.
and so that's this issue, and they have opined on this.
Well, but the Conservation Commission during that whole process was abundantly clear, quite clear, that they did not look at that piece at all. They were only looking at as it pertained to the Wetlands Protection Act. They turfed it to the planning board.
There might be some confusion, and we can have Doug here at the next meeting if you need to. But
So is your question is that you're saying that the Conservation Commission did not review whether the stormwater management system complied with the DEP stormwater management policy?
That isn't right, Alicia.
no, they did.
I don't think anyone cares about the drainage of the areas that are already wet. But the areas that are not wet, that's where the controversy was about, is it a wash or is it impervious, unconnected?
Great question.
And that's all upland stuff, because we don't have any arrays in the wetland areas.
We can clarify with Doug, but I'm almost certain, because we met with him immediately after his decision, and we went over these, and he said, yeah, I've decided on these, I've decided on that, I've decided on this. And so,
One thing, he's telling us something else, because in the Conservation Commission meeting, he said, I can only speak to issues strictly as they pertain to the Wetlands Protection Act.
Over
He said it
and
on the
over
record
and
Yeah.
several times.
I have never seen a Conservation Commission that didn't take into account upland areas.
Yeah, you have to.
When reviewing stormwater management impacts that impact wetland areas.
It flows to the wetlands.
It's
I agree
necessary
with
to
you.
do as part of that process.
I agree with you.
In compliance with the stormwater
I
management
agree with you, which is why
policy
the
would be that you would
DEP,
not increase the rate of runoff off the
this is the
site.
reason why the DEP is getting involved now too.
And the
because it was
DEP will
not-
look at that as well, because
Okay.
if it because the stormwater in upland areas coming into wetlands impacts wetlands. So DEP does have jurisdiction over that issue, they will look at that. I think, to your question, whether the board should do its own review of the stormwater, independent of what the Conservation Commission and ultimately the DEP decides, is I think beyond the scope of the planning board. If the DEP says that the Conservation Commission acted properly and that it meets the stormwater management policy, I don't think that this board would be able to be upheld if it came to a different conclusion. I mean, if that was a situation where this board issued a decision stating that although the Conservation Commission found that it did meet the DEP policy, we don't believe that it does, and there was an appeal of that decision, it's almost certainty that the board would lose on that
Right.
issue.
because it's not our authority.
Okay. Okay. It's clear now.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
This problem could very well go away when we get the result of the appeal. You know, the DEP has already a couple of their personnel have taken a position on that already. But unfortunately, it was a position, it wasn't a regulation. So, if,
I just get confused because it's part of the special permit review criteria.
Right,
Yes,
no.
And
It's,
why?
Well, see, what happened is we did this before we transferred the responsibility to the Concom,
When did that happen?
maybe 2 years ago. But we drew this up before we transferred responsibility of stormwater to the Concom, that's all. That's why it's sitting here.
there's a long tortuous history to the,
in any event, the stormwater management plans have been submitted as part of this process,
Right,
correct?
right.
So that aspect of the bylaw has been met. Their efforts to comply with stormwater management has been submitted to this board. It's just an issue of whether or not this board's gonna take a position
Right.
contrary to what's already been decided by the Conservation Commission.
Okay, all right, okay, all right, and we're gonna try to go through these again with the board. Item D, the suitability of the installation location for agriculture, including information about soil grade and any history of agricultural uses on the site within 10 years prior to the special permit on the site plan review. So in their resubmittal that maybe you haven't had a chance to do, they do go into this. And in addition, the report from Wildlife Habitat also makes an assessment of the agricultural suitability as well as a guess really at when it was last farmed. So I think we have information about.
Katie, when was it last farmed? When did you sell the last cow?
I have to talk to my grandmother.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Chuck Bear seems to think he remembers it being a working dairy farm.
oh,
It-
yes.
He could have,
Oh, definitely.
okay, he's late 60s, so that, okay.
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather.
So probably 50 years ago in round
Yeah,
figures.
Probably 50 years.
Yeah.
And even still, we have, prior to anybody farming it, we've had horses out there and, you know, but at one point it was completely cleared out.
Yeah.
Okay. Item E is any environmental remediation efforts that the owner or operator anticipates will be necessary for installation, maintenance, or removal of the installation. I think that we have them in this analysis here. Has anybody looked at anything else on this?
No.
No? I think that we have them. Martha, do you have a thought on that? Item E, I think that it's pretty
There's
straightforward.
a lot of stuff that we just got that I haven't read yet. I don't really have an opinion on that one.
Okay, and item F, in determining whether to issue a special permit, SPGA shall consider the open space and actual, so we have to consider the plan, okay. And then item G is land clearing, soil erosion, and habitat impacts. Clearing of natural vegetation shall be limited to what is necessary for the construction of, so this is just kind of, this is now guidelines. And based on our discussion so far, I think that the land clearing is in conformance with these guidelines. Stormwater, Jenny talks about stormwater management and illicit discharge and erosion control, and that goes back to the stormwater report. Determining whether to issue a special permit, SPGA shall consider such impacts and efforts to mitigate them. The applicant and any co-applicants may be required to replace up to 100% of any trees with a 6-inch caliber or more. And I think, you know, that's one of these things that I know that the applicant has said that they'll do the sticks, and I think we just don't know where we are on that. Am I right?
Yes,
I don't think we've said that's a good idea or a bad idea.
it's not been resolved.
No.
Yep.
Yeah.
What did he
On the
say?
sticks,
Yeah, what about, what?
I mean, we said I don't think we resolved whether or
It
not
is
that's a
not
good idea.
resolved, no. I'm looking for a home, and I'm not doing very well at the moment.
Yeah, I know. And then O&M, operation and maintenance plan, the applicant and any, this is repeated a second time. And so we've already had this discussion today about that the O&M plan will be required before a building permit can be given. So that looks okay. And then site condition suitability. All appurtenant structures, including but not limited to equipment, shelters. Well, all you're having here is, right, transformers? What are the structures that are out there?
There'll be an inverter,
An inverter,
and there'll be a switchgear, but they're small. They're like the boxes we saw in.
right, okay. So I think that's, anybody think that's an issue? Of the structures?
No.
not in their location, because they're right in the middle of the site. All right, so then, item 02, the SPGA may grant a special permit only upon finding that the proposed meetings and meets the standards specified in 9711C of Newbury's zoning bylaw and the following general standards. So, A, the proposed use and development will not have a substantial or undue adverse effect upon adjacent property, the character of the area, or the public health, safety, and general welfare. So,
That's certainly up for grabs at the moment.
so what,
That's the
do you have any opinions? Do you want to express anything of where we are on this?
That
I
seems
think
to
it's
be the
flapping
issue.
in the breeze right now until we resolve the visibility issue. Everything I've heard, and I'm up to 7 realtors at the moment, I'm continually hearing that if they can see it, it either will or definitely could have an adverse impact. If they can't see it, there is no impact. Sorry, but that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and you know what, this is really among us right now, okay. What about you, Jim?
That's the crux of the issue, I think. Assuming the DEP takes care of a lot of the other environmental loose ends, this is the real, this is the
George?
big question.
This is why the neighbors are here tonight.
Yeah.
If they didn't care about
That
this.
and B. Elizabeth?
No, I agree, and I think the language substantial and undue adverse effects are important.
Well, I would.
What do you think will satisfy us?
Well, I don't know. I'm inclined to let the substantial and adverse, to momentarily make believe they're not there. And let's see what is the best deal that we can get before we invoke those, because those are so damn subjective.
Yeah.
What
And-
is substantial?
and-
10%? Well, that's a lot of money.
And so, John, when you say what we can get, you're referencing the conservation easements and the landscaping.
No, well, the landscaping in that, that is the screening.
Right, the
Yeah.
screening.
The conservation easement, I've got that in another, I consider that definitely a good thing, but I don't think it relates particularly to the value, the erosion of home values.
I think-
It could help, it certainly would help.
I think it's one of those
But
things
it's
that
certainly in a conservation easement, nobody's going to object to having one of them, certainly.
Anybody have any further thoughts on A? Martha?
Nothing else.
B, the nature and intensity of the intended operations will not discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent land and buildings, nor impair the value thereof. Same issue.
Yep.
Same issue.
Yep.
I wrote that. All proposed traffic access ways shall be adequate, but not excessive, in number adequate in width, grade, alignment, and visibility, sufficiently separated from the street intersections and places of public assembly, and shall meet similar safety considerations. We think we're
I think
okay.
that's pretty well
That's
resolved,
done.
isn't it? It's okay with the fire department
Yeah,
still?
well, we've got letters from fire and police.
Yeah.
Adequate, safe, and accessible off-street parking and loading spaces shall be provided to avoid parking in public streets. Not an issue. Am I right? Anybody think this
Yep.
is?
No.
I don't see that as an issue.
B, adequate access to each structure for fire and emergency service equipment shall be provided. This is where we have the last letters here from the fire and police department for E.
Where did we end up with relative to snow plowing?
You had the, did you have the
What was the
discussion
deal with Nate on that?
with Nate? Did you discuss that it's 8 inches or higher?
It was 8 inches and higher, yeah.
Yes.
8 inches or higher, it gets plowed.
Right.
Okay. And Nate bought that? He's good with that, okay.
The proposed use and development will not result in the destruction, loss, or damage of any natural, scenic, or historic feature of significant importance. Again, somewhat subjective, but anybody want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, the natural, I guess, you could argue, is still an issue.
Well, scenic, no, but natural certainly will, but again, there's no way in God's world you build a build one anywhere without destroying some vegetation.
And that's the dilemma we have. I
Pardon?
mean, that's the dilemma we have.
Yeah.
If you do any project, look at what we just did out with Bill DiFrancesco.
Talk about,
I mean,
talk about things you wish you had the authority to not approve.
Yeah, yeah.
But
The entire okay, we're getting to G. The entire project site shall be screened at all seasons of the year. This is what I was talking about before. The entire project site shall be screened at all seasons of the year from the view of adjacent residential lots and streets and roadways, and the general landscaping of the site shall be in character with the generally prevailing in the neighborhood. So I think in this one, you've made the point, Alicia, by the way, about that. I think we just need to come up with the best possible evergreens that'll do the job. And we're gonna have Steve work with, Martha. You were way too long.
So, John, you interpret that to mean the adjacent residential lots, that means anywhere on the lot?
Yep.
Yes.
I do.
Okay. Yep,
I mean,
that's,
when you're out there, the reality is really not that much, but we made the walk, and I'm glad Alicia took us for the walk, because you can see them from the back of Jean's and from the back.
yeah, I
I
didn't
don't
really,
think it was from the back of yours, but it's certainly from the back of Dan's.
You know what, the thing is, you won't know until they cut. You won't know what you're gonna see until it's not there to see it anymore. It's a big unknown.
well, whether it is or not is irrelevant. You can see it from the property.
As long as they're willing to
So-
plant trees, no matter what the cost is, and mitigate and acceptable, if they have to
That's-
screen the whole site.
I understand, that's what this says.
yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't think I'll know until it's gone.
Item H, the volume of cut and fill, the number of removed trees that are 6 inches more in caliber, the area of wetland vegetation displaced, soil erosion, and threat of air and water pollution shall be held to a minimum set by SPGA after consultation with the Concom. We have had discussions with Doug about a number of these things, but let me just see if we talked about wetland vegetation, displaced soil. I didn't know if I had a soil erosion. That might be in there, in the threat of water and air pollution. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? Anything?
No, not right now, because we have to rely on the Conservation Commission initially for the information,
Yeah.
don't we?
Martha, what do you think?
Well, I think that, I think the Concom has addressed the, as George said, the wetland vegetation and
Soil erosion.
the soil erosion.
I don't think they do air and water pollution. I mean, supposedly this should be negligible, shouldn't it? I mean, that's
From the
whole reason-
facility, yes.
It's the whole reason for,
Right, the facility would not pollute air or water, but still, I'm not sure. If you
No.
open up, no, it's fine.
okay?
It's pretty vague, it just says held to a minimum.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, what, yeah.
So I'm not too bothered by that one. I, adequate provisions shall be provided for stormwater management, well, that, and other utilities consistent with the functions, requirements of the Newbury Stormwater Rules and Regulations, the Department of Environmental Protection, and Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook. And so that's, again, we're taking the statements made by the Concom. J, obstruction of scenic views from publicly accessible locations shall be minimized. I don't think that,
That's not a problem.
I don't think that applies. You agree?
I agree.
K, glare from site lighting shall be minimized. Now, I know you sent us the cuts, but the only thing is you have to be sure that they're facing down, because they're facing out.
I sent something else to Martha. There's
Oh,
actually another
shades.
shield that you can put on that.
Oh, okay.
that will-
Because they gotta be down.
There's another shield. I sent
It's,
Martha
it's like,
another
it's a visor.
It's a visor.
That's what you need, is a
Yep.
visor.
Yep.
So you feel like you're on a golf course.
Good to you, huh?
It'll
Yeah.
work, it'll do.
L, sound impacts from transformers, inverters, and other electric equipment shall be mitigated with the use of enclosures, shielding, and placement. So we did, with Tech Environmental, back in September, they did a noise impact analysis for us, and basically found that there was no
I think that's different though, John.
sound impacts from transformers.
Well,
Isn't this the tree
there's
study?
two sound
They did
impacts.
both.
I'm sorry, no, this is the noise study.
But my understanding was this was the resulting impact from the cutting.
They
Okay.
did two things.
Okay.
They studied the
Yeah.
noise coming from the inverters and the whatever mechanics are on the property, and were they within the Newbury
Okay, I
guidelines?
didn't realize that.
And then secondly, after the trees were down, would the effect of the highway noise
Right.
be
That's what I
anything
thought.
greater? And they said it was a wash, it was
Okay.
negligible. So
No, no.
and you guys have seen this?
I have a question on that one. They did a noise study previously when there was 2 inverters.
They did it based on the revised.
Revised.
Okay, that was my
And
question.
when did
Yep.
they do the noise study?
When did they do it?
Yes.
Late August.
So all the leaves on the trees, all the leaves were still on the trees and.
Yeah, but they've, you can read the report, I think we've made it available to you. They make, you know, if we had Dave Mountain here, he would tell you that it has very little to do with that, it's everything to do with coldness, am I right?
Temperature.
Temperature. And he was an acoustical physicist, so he knew what he was talking about.
That's why you hear it more.
That's why you hear it more in the winter.
Yeah.
It's cold.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody okay with that then? We did do the noise study.
Yes.
N, unreasonable departure from the character, materials, and scale of buildings in the vicinity as viewed from the public ways and places shall be minimized.
Won't see it from a public
Won't
way.
See it from a
Yeah.
public way.
Even 95?
People should keep their eyes on the road.
I doubt it.
I
If you
don't
look at
think
that-
so.
Yeah, look at that, I doubt it. I doubt it.
There's a little rise of land on 95 near there. I'm not sure how much it covers.
Okay, N, the
I'll have to
proposed
go out and take a
development
look.
of the site shall be in compliance with the provisions of the zoning code, including parking signs, landscaping, environmental standards, and other pertinent sections. Final action, special permit grant, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, I did want to go over, this whole issue. I don't see if we have to go in detail, but on page 9780, we talk about the financial surety. And I'm just, because I'm not 100% certain of the timing of all this, and this is based on, now, your estimate, Steve, of what you think it's gonna cost to decommission it. And then you put up a bond equal to no more than 125% of that estimate. When does that bond get placed? Do you know, Martha?
I don't know.
Do you know, George?
Within 30 days following the issuance of the special permit, I believe. Up in one,
So, so it's a condition, so we make it a condition
Mhm.
when we make a decision. Within 30 days following the issuance of the special permit, or before construction of the
or before
ground.
construction.
Okay. So that gives them a wide, okay. Does anybody have any, on the board, have any other questions on all of this?
In that
Yeah, Jim?
surety,
Much goes back to screening,
Yeah. No,
which leads to value.
right.
well, I think I had the same question, yeah. So in that surety, that's where you'd put the landscaping and the requirement that,
No, this is just a decommissioning.
No, it's different.
this is different.
It would be that will be a separate condition.
Oh, all right.
Because it's not just that the landscaping be done, but the landscaping be done and being able to be revisited.
Right, yeah.
And I don't think they need to put up any money, it's an obligation. Right, don't you agree?
It's better.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions on the surety? Or, no, I think that's about it. Then we get into marijuana dispensary. So I'm not sure what that gives you, Martha, to work on, if you wanted to. Well, is it the opinion of the board members that aside from items A and B in the number 2 special permit review criteria? And aside from A and B, that you feel comfortable with all the other issues?
In '01.
In, in O2?
In '02, well, G is,
F and G.
the screening.
Oh, F and G, okay.
Yeah.
F and G.
That's what it is.
Okay, okay, F and G.
Well, A is an issue, and that flows from G.
So A, B,
Yeah,
F, G.
And G.
ABFG.
Okay?
Yeah, A, B, F, and G, I would say, are the biggies at this point.
Okay, and then, on the special permit review criteria, open space and ag, I think we really are not there yet. I think that you all need to read the document that Steve
Yeah, I-
submitted.
I haven't had a
And
chance to do
give
anything.
a,
Just scan 'em.
and at our next meeting, you need to, or maybe beforehand, let Martha know whether or not you think there's any holes in any of the things that you're reading, from what he submitted. Okay?
But the analysis there is that a report has been submitted on those issues, not whether we're satisfied with.
The analysis really, so we're taking it beyond that. The analysis simply says, did you get a report?
Yeah.
And we're saying, yeah, but do we like the report? Which it doesn't say we have to say. So, am I right? I'm almost sure that's what it says. All it says is you have to get a wildlife report. And now we're gonna say, all right, we have to like it, or we can use what they're saying to help us make the project better.
They're not comfortable saying, well, it just, we have one, the requirement's met. I think we need
I
to
agree with
believe that it's,
I agree with you.
it's a great, okay.
I agree with you.
So we have to like the report. Don't have to like what it says, but we have to feel the report is done professionally.
Okay. I think that in terms of what I had in mind, I think we've maybe touched on everything, George?
Yeah, so far.
Paul? Good. Martha, anything further from you?
No, I don't think so.
Do you want to start working on something that addresses all those other issues?
I can start the draft.
After the subdivision rules and regulations.
After
right,
she
John?
gets the subdivision rules and regulations.
John? After you heard that,
Yeah,
okay.
he did.
Alicia and others, do you have any comments or thoughts?
What's gonna be the process for this?
Well, board members haven't read it,
Just got it this afternoon.
Read it,
and any comments you have, and discuss it and see if it has any effect. I don't know. And so your input should be to Martha. And actually the board members should be to Martha, although you don't have to do it because you can just keep your counsel and come to the meeting and give us what you think. And then, do you have, excuse me, do you also have their open space and agricultural report?
No,
Or you need to get that to you as well. Okay? And we'll get that, that'll be it's a 6-page document or
that
something.
what this is?
Yeah, that's what this is. And so, we'll get that to you tomorrow. All right? So that's the new information.
Martha, did you?
Get that to us too, right?
Yeah. Oh, you didn't get it?
I've seen that.
No, you know, I thought it came in the Dropbox. What came in the Dropbox?
No, that was.
Oh,
that was
Matt's report.
Matt's report.
It was too big?
It bounced back from George and from John.
Right.
Happens.
So are you gonna review the binder that we gave you at the beginning of the work that we started?
We have done that at maybe the first meeting. I mean, I remember reading it. I remember Greg coming up, making his presentation, and applauding you all on the thoroughness of your analysis, and that we had read through it. I mean, would you like us to do that again?
I think it should be reviewed, because there's information in there that is pertinent to what we need to do in the decision.
Yeah, there was information that I didn't present that we just put in there as just separate addendums.
Oh, so also, I want to make sure that I have, what was it again that you just gave us, Greg? Did you just hand it to Martha?
It's
Was
up.
it just to Martha?
And also, objection.
Oh, the Mattapoisett information. Why don't I have?
I've got that.
Mark,
You have it?
Yep, so I'll scan.
To you electronically, too.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that would be great, thank you.
That would be helpful. Okay, so, can I have a motion that we continue this public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Date certain to
The
the
December
December 16 at
16th.
7:15.
December 16th at 7:15. And that, any comments on this?
Well, Steve, you can have the further information on vegetation and so forth, plantings and so forth in 2 weeks, is that
That would be very helpful.
what, yeah?
Basically a new
I mean, I
plan.
think that really has to be nailed down,
Yeah, new
you
plan.
know,
Okay.
or at least the exact amount may not be nailed down, but a procedure has to be nailed down, so that,
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't have thought that, but the more I think of it, the procedure and the approach is
yeah, the
very.
approach, I think, is key,
It
because
really is important.
we aren't going to know early on, and you can't replant all the trees you've cut down. That isn't going to work. So the tweaking has to be in the plantings.
Well, then maybe can I suggest this, that I come up with the species and then a method of doing it? And maybe not a plan, but I could show an area where we would plant them, but I think just the method, maybe that it's more wording than a plan, almost, would be more effective.
Work it out with Martha.
Yeah.
Work out everything with Martha.
Probably has a lot of free time.
The screening itself, is the intent there to put in trees or bushes that are already able to screen but not
Yeah,
years from
oh,
now?
not something that's gonna grow. I mean, excuse me.
Sorry.
They'll grow.
Doesn't have.
They'll grow. It
Screen
needs,
effectively now.
the wording in our bylaw says screened, 100% from, and it doesn't mean in 5 years, it means now. So, and that's not easy. We understand that. So,
There is a
wait,
motion.
we have a motion that we will continue this to the 16th at 7:15. And any comments further? All those in favor?
Aye. You can stay.
Emma, we should leave. She shakes her head no. We're just dragging it.
Yeah, we are. We're not dragging it on, we're being very diligent.
Thanks, Paul.
Paul? Paul?
Oh, that's a low chair.
Oh,
I meant-
yes, the whole class is here.
I saw.
Oh, Jesus.
Let me rephrase the question. I was presuming,
All your classes?
so that's my knowledge.
Go to redevelopment.
Coffee looks so good.
Just, given the sort of something, what do we do if we don't have the
Climate change.
DEP? Any word from the DEP by the 16th?
Well, the 16th.
Would that make life easy?
Oh, if
We
we,
had DEP.
yeah, but what if we don't? Then we can't go to conclusion, can we?
Turn it down because you're cutting down too many trees.
That's sick and iron, John. Might love it to the rest of the
Wait,
board this
we're still on, hey, excuse us. All right, John?
Sorry, Paul, I'll catch you later.
I could ask you all to remove yourselves to the hallway. We forgot. Okay. Thank you.
Need the whole board.
So do you have any issues on, for the budget or not?
No, it's basically a heads up
Oh, okay.
next time.
Okay, liaison reports from the Board of Selectmen. Why don't we have the two members tell us what's going on?
One of them's outside.
James had a question about what if the Conservation Commission decision is not in, it's from DEP? Where do we stand then on making a decision of our own? We don't know.
Never had this happen before.
You can't make it conditional.
We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. So the Board of Selectmen They're meeting on Tuesday.
Yeah, I wasn't there at the last one, so I'm
No,
not sure.
I wasn't
don't
either.
know I don't know what transpired.
MVPC, they, having the Christmas party next Thursday. Maybe that's a bad idea these days. Christmas party and
I did have a brief discussion, John, with Joe today at the Stormwater collaborative thing. They're basically recommending that we put 2,000 to 5,000, or preferably 5, in the budget to pay MVPC to keep the collaborative going.
You think that's worthwhile, don't you?
Well, I'm in a quandary. First of all, I think relations with MVPC have improved dramatically. I'm hearing this all over the place in town hall.
Really?
They're no longer sort of the enemy. They're sticking their nose in everything.
So was that because of Joe?
Well, I'm not sure. From my perspective, stormwater, my worm's eye view of it, Joe made all the difference in the world. I was not thrilled with the previous team. I am thrilled with Joe, okay? I'm saying in general, and it may be personalities, and maybe, I don't know what. But from a purely business standpoint, they are helping us with our stormwater program, and we're going to have a somewhat easier time, and we're going to have a better program. Are we going to be okay without them? Of course we are. We're not stupid. We can figure this out for ourselves, okay? It is helpful that they organize meetings with DEP, with EPA, and so forth, but the fact remains, we can do this for ourselves without the Stormwater Collaborative. $5,000 is my entire budget, okay?
For what, stormwater?
For stormwater
That
management.
you got from Tracy?
Pardon me?
You got that from Tracy?
Yeah. Yeah, several years ago, I asked for 2,000 a year, and I got 5, and what happened is we gave 3 of it back to Tim to do stormwater-related.
Tim Leonard.
Tim Leonard, for the DPW to do stormwater-related repairs, retrofits, or something that improved the situation. This year, we got caught up. It was sort of the end of the year. James had just taken over, and the guy with the bucket truck really screwed us by not showing up. So, until the next fiscal year. So that went back into the general fund, or wherever money goes when you don't spend it. Subsequently, I have been asking for a couple of years that we get money that doesn't go away, because we're going to have bunches of expenses that will be one-shot deals. For example, we got to fix up a portion of the DPW barn as a headquarters for the testing. You can't. We've tried. We've started testing already, and we've concluded there's no way we can make it a tailgate operation. We got to have a room. It's got to be ventilated. We got to have a place to store things.
And that place is the barn?
And that will be the barn. I didn't dare ask James. He offered it, okay? And I said, you bet your life, thank you. And I believe that if we can get our act together, and I think we can, he's got a spare guy that's a pretty good carpenter, and Brian, a new employee, and he's looking for something to keep his troops going in the winter if there's no plowing to do. If there's plowing, then it ain't gonna happen, but.
It's not gonna snow this year.
Pardon?
It's not gonna snow
Oh,
this
yeah,
year.
good.
Yes, it is.
Thomas?
Yeah. But so anyway, I got 15,000 this past year of the kind of money that doesn't go away. It's permanent funding. So we don't have to spend it.
So it sounds like you're okay.
Financially, we are okay,
So the
yeah.
question is, do we want to contribute to MVPC?
Well, here's the deal. As I tried to make clear a year or so back, which nobody bloody well understood, I'm running an operation that is volunteer labor,
Right.
okay? If our team perceives that we're putting money away in other directions and not getting a benefit from it, you know, they're gonna be demoralized. I'm working my butt off because the town does not want to spend the $25,000
Right.
a year
Right.
it would cost the town to do it if we didn't have the team going.
Right.
And if we spend 25 grand, which will be over the 5-year term of the permit, for something that I can't justify, there's, you know, I'm wondering, what the hell am I doing this for? I got all kinds of other things I'd like to do, you know? I love doing the stormwater, but I really don't want to be made a fool of. The flip side is that it is a good thing for everybody, and maybe it could be not identified as stormwater, just another place in the budget, I don't know.
All right,
So,
okay.
it's way beyond my pay grade to make that decision. That's basically a
Right.
selectman and Tracy,
So,
where
but-
they want to go with that.
One other just bit of information from MVPC, that Dennis is resigning.
Really?
Yeah. Dennis DeZoglio,
The what?
the executive director of MVPC is resigning.
Oh,
In maybe 6 months to 9
Really?
months. Yeah.
is he retiring or moving on?
I
or-
got the impression.
Not that
he-
old.
I don't know how old. How old do you think he is?
I would guess probably 60. It's only a guess. Everybody looks like a
The-
teenager to me.
He's the former mayor of Methuen. You know, I mean, he's been around the block.
Oh, yeah.
He's been there for 10 years, and so they're putting a search committee together to find
Yeah,
an
I did not
executive
pick
director.
that up today. It was probably announced and I didn't hear it.
Well, it's not immediate. It's not immediate. It's, in fact, it's maybe in the end of the fiscal
That's
year, or maybe in.
That's good.
So.
But I am
anyway.
delighted with Joe, I really am.
Yeah.
Quite
I
happy
think,
with it.
what I understand, I mean, Dennis was a lot better than the guy who was there before him. Did you know Gaylord Burke?
I knew him years ago. Believe it or not, I was a delegate about 1979.
Right, yeah.
Okay?
Was he there then?
He was, Gaylord, what's his name, was
Gay-
there
Gay-
then.
Gay Burke.
Yes, and I wasn't into it enough to have an opinion,
Yeah.
whether I,
Anyway, no, they're doing their, you know, they have a lot of money, the Sandy grant,
Yeah.
they administer a lot of that. I think last month we approved $350,000.
are they administering the Sandy grant?
No, part of it,
Okay,
to UNH and BU.
oh, okay.
And
Because I
some
thought
appeal-
all of it
and
was
some appeal-
coming from Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah, well, it does, but
This
just,
is another
this is
bit
like
of
a payee, a payer.
Okay.
It just is, just to have it come from, they didn't receive the money. It went to Fish and Wildlife and to another agents and went to BU, but it simply passed through MVPC to pay the consultants.
Oh, I see.
And it's a lot-
Actually, I don't see,
a lot
but
of money. No.
it doesn't matter. what
It's
I
a,
do.
I don't
understand
it
this.
really is, it's a management tool.
Yeah.
It's a management tool. But aside from
Not
that,
like mirrors.
not much else. Any B of A?
Yeah, there was a meeting. I was not at the meeting on November 19th. They had one request for a finding from Mr. and Mrs. Marabito of 1050 First Street to increase the height of the building and
Where is
to
that?
cover the...
What is it,
1050 First Street.
1050 First Street? Oh,
It's on Plum Island.
I know, I'm just trying to think where it is, 1050.
No, I'm not sure either.
It's very close to the
close.
Newburyport border,
No, on First Street?
51st.
You said it was 51st?
51st.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah. And that was it?
No, anyway, they got permission to do it, provided they gave up the use and took apart a living space they had at the bottom of the building in the basement and raised the mechanicals up, and then they were granted the permit.
Oh, that's interesting.
End of report.
And anything more on the Concom?
No, we had the site visit by
Right.
DEP, and who knows? From what I'd heard, they didn't show their cards particularly. They just observed.
An item that Martha and I were just chatting about maybe before the meeting was this issue that's going on between Joe Sawatka and Bill DeFrancesco.
Yeah,
just
I
wonder-
think
and
Martha and I
just wonder if
discussed.
we can,
Huh?
can you guys get together and meet?
Yeah,
We
we've already
we talked
talked.
about it after you
Okay,
and I
we know
spoke.
what we're going to do.
And that's-
and
then
I
that's
don't want
fine.
to discuss it at
That's fine. Good enough.
on the air.
That's fine. With that, is there anything else that anybody would like to bring to the order of anybody? No?
Did JR have any questions?
Can we have a motion?
So moved.
I move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.